So thank you so much for coming to my tutorial. I'm so excited. Scones this month. I was out of town last month, so we didn't do a cooking tutorial last month. So we're going to be making something from one of my favorite TV shows in the style of Bridgerton. I don't know if everybody else has watched it, if everyone's already caught up. I know I am. So we have this book at the library. It's called Tea Time at Grosvenor Square. It's an unofficial cookbook for fans of Bridgerton like me. So if you want to have friends over and make some scones and have a party, perfect addition. So like that I've had and made, customizable. You can do flavors. You can add orange. You can add currants, anything like that. I have some clotted cream in the fridge for afterwards. So anything that you guys want, you can add to it. We'll be making the most basic proper English scone from this recipe. Right? And this is available at the Hoboken Public Library. Check it out after I'm done using it. Here we go. So let's go. We're going to need, which is already in here, 4 teaspoons of baking powder, which I've already got laid out right here. And then we're going to need half teaspoon of salt, which is right here. Add that in. So these are all our dry ingredients. And then we're going to need a cup of sugar as well. So you want to make sure that's good and mixed up. These are just all dry ingredients. Add that in. So you can also do this with a processor. I mean, I don't think you really need it. Just do it in a mixing bowl. Those are very expensive. So if you are on, like I am, like most people are, it's just easier to do it in a mixing bowl. All right. So what it is, we're going to add 6 tablespoons of butter. Now I'm going to add a little bit more, if only because more butter is always better and always makes it taste better. So I'm going to add a little bit of butter. More in. Just wash my hands. So this is where the food processor could be a little bit full, but if the butter is loose enough and it's wet enough, you can combine ingredients fine. So yeah, room temperature, and it'll combine just fine. So just gonna make sure it's all mixed in there. You're gonna make a little bit of a mess. Flour goes everywhere. So you just have to make sure that all of the chunks are getting mixed in there. So it may take a little bit of arm work. You may get some nice from this, some nice arms from mixing all this butter and flour there. So once you've done that, you can make it a little bit sandy according to the recipe. So just doing this mixed in. Again, you're gonna make a little bit of a mess. This flour goes everywhere. So got our dry mixture mostly ready to go, so this is going to take a little bit more arm work, but bear with me. Our dry ingredients. So on the other hand, for our wet ingredients, we're going to put 1 egg in a bowl and milk. So we 2/3, 1/4 milk. You can use whole milk according to the recipe, but I mean, I sometimes like to use less heavy, especially if you're using more butter. Again, you can adjust this as you need to based on what you're feeling. Some people like whole milk, Some people want to use almond milk. Some people want to use oat milk. It just sort of what you're in the mood for. Again, this recipe is very customizable. You can use whatever you want. So in here, we're going to whisk the egg and the milk. This is our wet ingredients. So just going to whisk that together. Nice and yellow. Again, you're going to get some nice arms from this. It's whisking and combining ingredients. I know when I tested this recipe, I just felt like my arm was going to off, but just a lot of whisking. Once that's good and mixed together, that's all set. So you do that. So you're going to pour wet and dry ingredients, and you're going to save a little bit, about 2 tablespoons or so, for the wash to go over the scones before we put them in the oven. So you sort of eyeball it. I mean, I don't have my measuring spoons with me, but you can sort of eyeball it. I don't know if you can see this like this. I'm going to put the majority of this into the bowl to try to combine as much as I can, and then leave a little bit for the end. You guys can see that. Just enough for the egg for the end. So combine this. And now you sort of have to be careful as you're combining these ingredients. So my test scones this weekend, it turned out a little bit wetter than I wanted it to. So you sort of have to eyeball it. That's why it's always nice to have some extra flour. If you need extra flour on hand. But when you're baking, it's a little bit more scientific than it is when you're cooking, it feels. So you sort of have to eyeball it as you get all the ingredients exactly right. The humidity, the temperature, if it's the summer or the winter thing, what elevation you're at. Things will cook differently. It's science. So you have to sort of keep your eye on this. So, all right. So now this is pretty much combined. It's pretty well combined. I can see a few little chunks of butter in there, but that's fine. So we're gonna knead this into a ball. Now. So in order to dough lay out the scones, you're gonna put some flour on the counter just to make it a little bit less dry. The dough on here. So we'll put a little bit extra flour on here. Yes, again, you are gonna make a mess because flour gets everywhere. So I'll put the dough on the counter so I can move a little bit. And just make sure you clean the counter beforehand. I had to do that yesterday. So just make sure you do that. And it can go right on the counter. I mean, if you don't feel comfortable, you can always use a cutting board too, just to make a little bit less mess on your counter, but you get more room on the counter, that's for sure. So take this out. Now, a little ball. See, it's a little bit wet, so I'm just going to combine it a little bit more. It's very, very. You just got to be. Now you're going to sort of push it out, lay it out until it's about an inch. Just try to make it as even as possible. You can't really roll this out with like a roll, so that's why the huge messiness with my hands. So now I take my pastry cutter. Sorry, I'm gonna go this way. I'm gonna wash off my hands a little bit. So you're gonna take your pastry cutter. See, baking is extremely messy. That's why it's always good to have the same person close by. So I'm gonna take my baking sheet, which is over here. You can use this one is a non-stick one, so I can use this. Or if you need parchment paper, you can also do that. So do this. Take my pastry cutter. So like most of them come like this. So you've got like 3 different. I'm gonna make the medium sized one just because. So take it, cut it out, and then move it very carefully. So sticky, sticking to the counter. So I'm gonna take it. Oh my god, I'm sticking to the counter here. Try a different section. See, again, everything is slightly different in my apartment. Sticking as much in here, it's sticking a lot. I'm going to transfer it over like that. Now, again, it's going to be very, very wet. It's going to be very, very sticky, so you just have to be careful taking it off the counter. But you just keep it in the basic circular shape and it'll all work out. You want it to be circular, so I know this looks a little tiny, but cut out the rounds. And again, getting them off the counter is a little bit of a challenge, but you can do it. Just takes a little bit of practice. Again, they might not be beautiful, but they will taste good, that's for sure at the end. So then you're going to gather this up, make another flat. Make it flat enough so you can cut another round. Again, so sticky. I have to wash my hands really well after this. So sticky. Okay, so then, and that's it. So then I'm gonna clean off my hands that are full of scone batter. Again, cooking is messy. Cooking and baking is messy, so that's half the fun. So use your hands. So make the egg wash that we made earlier. We're just gonna put over the top. So I'm gonna pour a little bit over, and be careful not too much because otherwise it's gonna burn in the oven. But see, just gonna pour a little over the top. Now. Yep, see, maybe a little too much, but you get the general idea. So now, these in the oven. So before this, I preheated the oven to 425. Now we're gonna put these in the oven for about 13 minutes. According to the recipe, when I did stir scones, 13 minutes was a little bit too much, but it sort of depends on the size. So I'm gonna do about 10 minutes, so it's about 11:50. So at noon, I'll take them out. And then when they come out, look like this. It's like magic.
Those look delicious.
Thank you. So then, if you guys want, you can always add something like clotted cream. You can always add something else. I have clotted. One of my favorite things to add into any baked good is this thing called lemon sugar. Add a little bit of that to my next batch to out, and it just gives a little bit of sweetness, just like pure sugar. Because sometimes pure sugar can be too much, but that's it. Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming to my tutorial. And if you want, you can come check out this book at the Hoboken Public Library. Make scones all on your own. Thanks.
Yay.
Yay.